Confronted my husband's complacency while my old stalker re-emerged after a friend's death, questioning how to reclaim my life without fear. I 32F and my husband 33 male have been arguing a lot recently over my old stalker. For some background, back in college, I was 24, I dated a guy, let's call him Fred, for around 2 months. Fred was interesting to say the least. To save time, he had several red flags once we started dating, so I dumped him. Fred acted like he couldn't care less, so I thought that was that. Few months go by and I'm starting to see Fred everywhere. I see him at the grocery store I go to, my go-to-nail place, my favorite restaurants, etc. I thought it was just a weird coincidence, so I left it at that. A year after our breakup, he starts messaging me, telling me he was the happiest with me and that he misses me so much. I called BS and blocked him. Then things escalated. Fred changed numbers every time I blocked him, made new social media accounts, and I started seeing his car everywhere. I tried getting a restraining order against Fred, but since he hadn't done anything to me, they couldn't do anything. A few months later, I was walking to my car at night. Fred coincidentally saw me walking alone and offered me a ride home. I said no, that I had my own car, and kept walking. Fred proceeded to get out of his car and tried pushing me to his car. I punched him and ran to my car. I drove away and luckily he didn't follow. I tried again to get a restraining order, but it was basically his word against mine. They gave me a temporary restraining order, but that's it. I was terrified of even walking outside and deleted all my socials. Thankfully, a very close friend, let's call him Pete, stepped in to defend me. Pete ended up threatening Fred and I finally stopped hearing from Fred. I felt free and slowly got back into my normal life. Now to present day, I'm now married to my husband. I've graduated from college and live alone with my husband. We moved to a nearby city and bought a house together. Sadly, a month ago Pete died during his sleep and I was absolutely devastated. I've known Pete since I was in high school and he was my closest friend. To be honest, I'm still not over his death and sometimes I can't believe he's gone. But guess who heard about his death? That's right folks, Fred found out and is now back. I received texts from Fred a few days after Pete died. I now see him everywhere and he's insisting we talk. I just walk away and ignore him. I've reported him but nothing has happened, so I deleted my socials again. Friends have been telling me Fred has been asking around about me. He's asked if I moved, what am I doing lately, if I have other social media accounts, etc. I'm honestly terrified. I've moved since I finished college, but somehow I see him at my gym, grocery store, park, etc. It honestly makes me believe he never stopped watching me and it's terrifying. I've told my husband about everything and he says I'm overreacting or just plain ignores my concerns and changes the subject. I've argued that he doesn't care and he argues back asking what do I expect him to do. He says that Fred doesn't know where we live and that we'll just change gyms. My husband is telling me to just change my regular routine and stop going to certain places. He says it's no big deal and Fred is harmless. I'm like, Fred tried to force me into his car? How is that harmless? My husband has been distant ever since this started and I feel alone. I don't want to tell my friends in fear they will tell Fred. I can't go to my family because I'm in no contact with them. And of course my husband couldn't care less. I need advice. What do I do? Am I crazy? Should I just change my gym and my routine like how my husband says? Part of me just wants to move completely, but another part is basically asking myself, why do I have to uproot my life and change everything because of him? Can't he just leave me alone? It's been like 10 years already, and I want to move on from this. Should I just talk to Fred hoping he'll finally leave me alone? Update 1. My friends don't talk to Fred and they are aware of the situation. Fred has reached out to them randomly asking about me. They have reported and blocked him as well. Now for the update. Last night I decided to have a serious conversation with my husband one last time. I sat down with him and explained the whole situation again. Told him how scared I've been and that he needs to take this seriously. I wanted to show him how terrified I was. How small I've been made to feel, not just by Fred but also him. How his lack of support/concern for my own safety is making me question our marriage. I asked if he'd even do anything if I was found in a ditch. He was silent the whole time while looking at the floor. We sat in silence for a few minutes before I got up to pack my things. My husband proceeded to cry. He apologized and said he'd make this right. He said he didn't want to overreact in fear of scaring me more. But when in reality it made me feel alone. My husband has been looking into Fred, without my knowledge, and has found out where he works, lives and even Fred's family contact information. He wanted to gather more information about Fred before contacting a lawyer. We're both taking a few days off of work to get our ducks in a row. We're getting a lawyer and gathering evidence of Fred's harassment. We're also currently looking for a therapist where we can both talk about this whole situation and other issues we have in our marriage. I also have some voicemails Fred has left me and I officially think he's lost it. I have an Apple iPhone and you're able to see voicemails from blocked numbers. Some of the messages are of him saying straight up gibberish while others are as if he's having a conversation with me. He says things like, "Oh yeah babe, I get off work late so tonight is a no-go," or "I'm off so you can come pick it up right now." No. Yeah. I don't know. I can't do this anymore. There's a lot of fashion in my life. It sounds like he's having a conversation but it's no one else, just him, and it's terrifying. My husband does feel bad and is trying his best to console me. He has apologized repeatedly for making me feel lonely and has been more supportive/open. Currently he's looking through my car to check if there's anything that might be giving my location to Fred. Update 2. Wasn't sure if I should make an update but decided to anyways to maybe get some more advice. Thank you to everyone who gave me advice and encouragement. I finished listening to the book The Gift of Fear and it really opened my eyes to a lot. Now on to the update. After my husband didn't find anything in my car, I still felt something wrong, so I took people's advice and took my car to the mechanic. Told my mechanic about my situation and if he could take a look at my car. And to my horror, a couple days later, my mechanic found a small little cube that was placed hidden under my car. At first I really wanted to believe it was just part of my car or something. But my mechanic explained that it wasn't and it was deliberately hidden. The cube is really small and magnetic. I called my lawyer right then and told them everything. I got pictures of the GPS and where it was placed. I thanked the mechanic and drove to my lawyer's office. At this point I was shaking and wanted to cry. How long had the GPS been there? How long has Fred been following me without me knowing? Was he watching me at that moment? Is he going to add another one? I called my husband to meet me at the lawyer's office and told him everything. At the office I just wanted to disappear. I wanted to run away and not look back. I was terrified and I felt so violated. Knowing I was being watched for who knows how long. With everything we had gathered, my lawyer was able to get a temporary restraining that same day. We are currently going through the process of getting a restraining order where I will have to go to court and see Fred again. My lawyer says the process can be long and draining, but it's something I do need to get for my own safety. I got a bit scared and had my husband's car also checked for anything. Thankfully nothing was found in his car. I started feeling watched at home, so I had my whole house turned upside down looking for anything maybe Fred had placed. Again, thankfully nothing was found. I've told neighbors about what we found and to keep an eye out for anyone suspicious. I've also started my safety training for handling a gun and shooting. And still trying to get my CCW, but it can be a long process. Update 3. First, the restraining order hearing finally happened. The days leading up to it, I was a mess, nervous, angry, exhausted by fear. I barely slept, kept checking the doors and windows, and even started sleeping with my phone recording just in case. My husband was incredibly supportive this time and walked with me everywhere. The lawyer prepped me for everything, including being cross-examined, and warned me that Fred could try to make himself look like the real victim. Court was surreal. Fred showed up looking exactly the same as all those years ago, except thinner and somehow more intense. His eyes kept flickering toward me as if we shared some secret, which made my skin crawl. He tried to claim he just wanted closure and that I had been leading him on, but my lawyer methodically presented every voicemail, the text messages, the GPS device found on the car, with photos and the mechanic's statement, and statements from my friends and neighbors about Fred asking around. When the judge asked Fred to explain the GPS, his answer was that he just wanted to make sure I was okay. It was terrifying to realize how little remorse or self-awareness he had. But the judge, thankfully, was firmly on my side and issued a 5-year restraining order. I have never felt so relieved and so exhausted at the same time. But here's where things started to slide into the bizarre. A week after the order was served, one of my neighbors, who I'd told about Fred, texted me late at night saying a weird person had come up to her house, ringing the bell and asking about the girl who lives in the blue house with the pink hydrangeas, me. She recognized Fred from the photos I'd shown her and threatened to call the police, so he left. That shook me to my core. How bold could he be, to blatantly violate the restraining order so soon? We called police immediately, who took our report and added it to the case. But then, not 24 hours after, there was a knock on my door. It was a woman, maybe mid-50s, holding a plastic bag and looking nervous. She introduced herself as Fred's mother. She apologized for coming but said she'd found my address and needed to talk to me about Fred. My husband wanted to shut the door in her face, but something told me I should listen. We stood on my front porch, and she explained that Fred had a long history of obsessive behaviors and mental instability. She admitted that after I broke up with him in college, his whole world closed in. She apologized tearfully, said she hoped the restraining order would finally force Fred into real treatment, and left her number if it ever got worse. She warned me, he's cunning and patient. Please don't underestimate him, even if the court says you're safe. That conversation gut punched me with both relief and new worry, a strange validation that, yeah, I'm not just imagining this, but also the chilling reminder that Fred has been this way for a long, long time. His own mother didn't trust he would stop. Immediately, my husband and I doubled down on security. I upgraded all the locks, added more cameras, including a doorbell cam out back, and got motion sensor lights on every side of the house, all things I should have done before, but somehow hadn't believed I'd need until now. A friend offered to lend me her super anxious German Shepherd while she was on a work trip, so we now have a very loud, very loving alarm dog in the house. It has helped a lot just to hear his low growl if anyone comes close at night. But the weirdest thing happened just last week. I received, via regular mail, a handwritten letter addressed to me in sloppy, childlike writing. There was no return address. It rambled for several pages, with lines like I know you are scared. Don't be scared of me, I will show you I'm better. Pete said not to contact you, but Pete is gone now. I saw you at the gym. You changed gyms, that's okay, I know your new schedule. I am always thinking of you. Maybe you changed your hair, but I like it. I felt like vomiting. The lawyer said the language about Pete is gone now concerned him deeply. We submitted the letter as more evidence of harassment and a possible violation of the order, which means the police are now treating this as a criminal investigation. To their credit, they sent a patrol car by our house twice a day for a week, and I was put in touch with a victim's advocate who helped me draft an email to HR at work, alerting them to the situation. They'd already noticed someone lurking outside a few days before. Side note, thank you to the posters who suggested checking work. The police actually found a car matching Fred's parked a block from my office. What scares me most is what the police officer said. If he's showing himself this clearly now, he either wants to get caught, or he's preparing to escalate. I'm not sure which is worse. At this point, my husband and I have had new conversations, the kind you have when you realize you're entering a new level of threat. We both agreed to stop posting anything identifiable online, and he's begun collecting small, quiet observations, license plates, times of day, anyone following us, just in case. We're both in therapy, and it's helping, but there is a constant tension now in our house. I don't know what Fred's next move will be. I am terrified, but I also feel stronger somehow. Maybe it's the support from my husband now, or maybe it's that I finally have people, lawyer, police, neighbors, victim support, on my side for the first time ever. To anyone reading this, I hope you never have to go through this level of violation and fear. I don't want Fred to win by making me leave my life. For now, I am fighting to reclaim my home, my routines, and my sense of who I am, apart from being a victim. I will update again if, when, something changes. I want so desperately for nothing to happen, just for silence, normality, and the feeling that I can open my door without thinking about Fred. But I know realistically, that outcome will take time, and maybe a little luck too. Thank you for all your support, ideas, and strength. I feel surrounded by a silent army now. I never imagined an internet community could mean so much when you're at your lowest. Please, stay safe, trust your instincts, and don't let anyone convince you your fear is overreacting. I wish I could go back and tell myself that 10 years ago, but at least I know it now. Update 4. It started with the dog, my friend's anxious German Shepherd, Obi, who became, in just a few weeks, the only creature I trust completely. Obi sleeps at the foot of the stairs, always on alert. Sunday night he barreled down the hall in the middle of the night, snarling like I've never heard, right to the back door that opens into our tiny fenced yard. He was hurling himself against the glass, and when I finally had the courage to peek through the curtain, I caught a shape disappearing into the shadows. The motion lights flicked on just as I caught a flash, the outline of someone too thin to be my husband and too tall to be a neighbor. I called the police, heart pounding so hard I felt dizzy. They walked the yard in the dark, found some shoe prints in the soft dirt below the window, but there were no cameras back there. I couldn't bring myself to sleep again until morning. That same morning, I called out of work, and spent 3 hours on the phone rotating through police, my lawyer, and our security company. The advice was to move, again, to a higher level of precaution. So we did, new floodlights, added a back porch camera, and reinforced locks. My poor husband, utterly bleary-eyed, just kept murmuring, "It'll be okay. We're not going to be driven out." But I could see in his face, for the first time, a real shadow of fear. The letter from last week finally nudged the DA's office into action. I had to go in to give a statement, again, and the detective told me, in the gentlest, most exhausted voice, "We're going to try for a harassment charge, and this time an arrest." Apparently, Fred's earlier violation, the letter referencing Pete is gone, crossed a legal line. Now there are actual, real consequences. But things spiraled. On Wednesday, my work called. Apparently a delivery guy came by the building, asking the receptionist for me, and left a brown paper bag with "return to sender," written on the outside. Inside? A faded Polaroid of me from college, in front of my old dorm, with "You looked happy" as tear scrawled on the back. I stared at that tiny, grainy photo for a long time. How did he even get it? No note, no signature, just that. My boss let me go home as soon as she pieced together what was happening, and we were assigned security at the doors for the rest of the week. Meanwhile, my husband's phone started buzzing with a new number. At first we thought it was a telemarketer, until he picked up, put it on speaker, and there was just heavy breathing and then, "I can see you both now. Everything is so close. Tell her to stop hiding. She looks tired." I fell apart, right there. Couldn't be brave anymore. I sobbed. Called my lawyer. Called my therapy hotline, just to remind myself none of this was my fault, that Fred's obsession wasn't some kind of cosmic punishment for me being nice to him in college. So we changed everything again. My husband and I packed overnight bags and went to stay with his sister in a different part of the city. My friend's dog came with us. We checked into a hotel after that, randomly, never the same place twice. I don't know what it feels like to have a home anymore. But here's where the tide finally turned. On Friday, I got a call from the detective. Fred had been arrested. It wasn't for what we expected. A few days after the delivery, police flagged a car cruising slowly past my work's back entrance. Driver matched Fred's description. He refused to comply when they pulled him over, tried to get away, and clipped a police car. He was booked for felony evasion, along with multiple counts of violating a protective order, and, get this, possession of electronic surveillance devices, which I didn't even know was a crime until now. They found a stash of tracking equipment in his trunk, 2 extra GPS cubes, a long lens camera, handwritten notes with my new gym's address, and a journal with lists of my routines and, chillingly, new ways to get close again without anyone noticing. There were pages fixated on Pete. One line, with Pete gone, she forgets who her protector is. Must remind her. Must become the person she can't live without. I threw up in the police parking lot when I was shown this. The DA called me personally to say they'd secured a high bail, more than most stalking cases ever get, because the judge, ironically, had a sister who'd gone through something similar and recognized the pattern. For the first time, I felt like the system wasn't quietly writing me off. So, this past Saturday night, my husband and I sat together for the first time in ages, really sat, relaxed, with cups of tea at his sister's table. Obi lay at our feet. Outside, rain battered the windows, but I felt safer than I have in months. There were no weird texts, no strange cars, no shadow in the rain. I slept, sort of. I woke up before dawn and wondered, is it finally over? Is this what quiet feels like? What's next? This is going to be a long road in court. Fred will have a criminal trial, and our restraining order is being converted to a lifetime ban. I have to testify about the pattern, the harassment, the psychological toll it's taken on me, which is both empowering and deeply, nauseatingly exhausting. I started a support group for stalking survivors in my city, which was just 3 of us at first, but we speak in a language no one else gets and share practical advice about home security, panic buttons, smart recordings. But as for my marriage, something has shifted. My husband, who used to freeze or dismiss my fear, is different, gentler, watchful. We've been in counseling together and sometimes just sit quietly with our dog, thinking about the future, a clean one. He said the bravest thing he ever did was admit he didn't know how to help me, but he's learning now, every day. To my silent, steadfast Reddit army, your practical checklists, links, and encouragement probably saved my life. If you're ever doubting whether reading and caring for a stranger can make a difference, know that it does. That you did. I don't want to call this an ending, more like a turning point. I know trauma lingers, but so does love, and so does community. I am not alone now, no matter what happens. Stay safe. Listen to your gut, hold your people close. Never let someone call your fear irrational. And above all, trust that things can change, even if you have to fight for every inch of ordinary life. Update 5. I struggled with whether to write this, but everything in my life feels new again, raw, buzzing at the edges, and I think it's important, both for anyone who's following and maybe, selfishly, just for me. Maybe, hopefully, it's the kind of update I wish I'd found years ago, one with something unexpected, even hopeful hiding under all the trauma. So, it started with the trial prep, but quickly turned into so much more. First, Fred stayed in jail through his arraignment. The prosecutor was aggressive, actually using words like predatory and fixated in front of the judge. That alone gave me a jolt of strength I didn't know I had left. But the defense attorney, and then Fred himself, God, it was like entering some alternate universe, watching someone rewrite history in real time. Fred insisted he just cared about my well-being and accused me of orchestrating some vendetta with Pete. The judge was not amused. The real bombshell? Mid-proceedings, during a recess, Fred's mother approached my lawyer in the hallway and handed over a series of notebooks and a flash drive. She said, with tears in her eyes, I want this out of my house, please use it to stop him for good. Inside were hundreds of pages of Fred's rambling journal entries, clippings from my old life, printouts of photos I'd forgotten existed, ticket stubs, crayon drawings that were honestly chilling in their childishness. There were recorded monologues, and, most hauntingly, a spreadsheet of addresses, mine, Pete's, my other friends, some ex-coworkers. The notebook had a page titled What She Needs to Understand, followed by increasingly frantic scrawls about proving permanence, fate, and forgiveness. I was shaking so hard after reading some of it that my lawyer quietly suggested I find somewhere peaceful and take a break. My husband booked us a last-minute cabin out by a lake, somewhere Fred never knew about, a friend's place, not even in our names. For 3 precious days, I woke to birds and Obi's wet nose instead of dread in my chest. My husband made us breakfast, let me nap, listened when I needed to talk and sat silent when I just wanted to stare at the water. We hiked with Obi, and for the first time in I don't know how long, I felt my body fully relax. My phone barely got reception. I finished a whole book, swam in the lake, and journaled by hand, not about Fred, but about dreams and the future. But the peace was bittersweet. At dusk on the second night, my phone buzzed, a withheld number, a single voicemail, a minute of silence, broken only by a faint, faraway phrase, it's all making sense now. Thank you for everything. Goodbye. The sheriff confirmed it came from jail. Fred, as it turns out, attempted self-harm the next morning. He survived but was placed under suicide watch. His psychiatric evaluation revealed levels of delusion and fixation the prosecutor had suspected but never documented. The charges escalated, now not just for stalking, but breaking several specialty cyberstalking laws. I wasn't allowed, nor wanted, to see him, but I testified by video from a safe room, bolstered by my lawyer, my husband, my therapist, and a DA who, miraculously, acted like this wasn't just another one. For weeks after, my life was split: courtroom dread in the morning, recovery at night. My support group swelled to 6 members, one of them turned out to be a neighbor. That made me feel sad but also understood in a way I hadn't before. Security at our house stayed tight, but I bought flowers for myself for the first time in years. Sometimes I'd just sit on the steps with Obi and sip coffee until dawn turned the sky gold. I began to plan, not just security upgrades, but little pockets of normalcy, inviting friends over, plotting a trip to a place with no memories tied to Fred. I set up an appointment to finally get my hair cut the way I've always wanted, not worrying about being recognizable from old photos. Then, no cars outside my work. No shadow figures outside our fence. No more calls. Peace, real peace, returned so slowly it almost snuck up on me. Last week, Fred was ruled not competent for trial. He's being sent for psychiatric treatment, possibly for years. A judge extended my lifetime protection order and approved future no-contact clauses for any possible release or transfer. The DA told me, this is as close to closure as it gets. I still don't know if I believe in closure, but the breathing room is real. Here's where things got crazy, in a completely different way. About 2 days after the ruling, Pete's little sister reached out. She was sorting through Pete's things and found a series of letters from him to me he'd never sent, written during his own struggles, not about Fred, but about friendship, forgiveness, and building a real, ordinary life worth defending. I sat at her kitchen table with coffee, Obi at my ankles, reading Pete's messy scrawl. He told me never to let people make me feel like a side character in my own story. He hoped he'd given me courage to find joy, even when life was ugly or terrifying. He wrote, "If you're reading this, you survived whatever you needed to survive. I'm proud of you." I laughed. I cried. For the first time, the grief for Pete felt like a warm stone in my hand, not a weight on my neck. Today, our house is still a fortress, but also feels like home again. Obi's family officially rehomed him to us. He chose us, they told me, and I could only agree. My husband and I look at each other and see not just exhaustion and fear, but strength and the kind of stubborn hope you only earn after hell. I've written a formal statement for my work to share with HR, detailing what happened and what support survivors might need. My boss asked if I'd help lead a workshop about digital safety for women in our office. I agreed. Because for the first time, I know my story isn't just something that happened to me. I get to choose what comes next. I'm not naive. Trauma, like Fred, lingers. My hypervigilance is now a part of life, but so is Pete's voice, alive in those letters, reminding me not to shrink, even when it hurts. Our support group is planning a picnic. My husband and I are, for real, researching that trip, to a city that has nothing to do with Fred or Pete or college, just us. I keep Obi's leash by the door and my coffee mug by the window. I thought when this ended, I'd feel fireworks or at least relief, but mostly, I feel steadier, braver, ordinary in a way that glows. Like someone who survived, yes, but also someone deeply, truly alive. If you're reading this and afraid, or thinking you've lost your story to someone else's obsession, there's a way back. It may take years, and armies, and the patience you didn't know you had. But you can find it again, inch by careful, riotous, hard-earned inch. I'll keep updating only if necessary. But for now, for the first time, I want my own quiet, and I finally believe I get to have it.